You're listening to The Pump Fake. With your host, Jarrett Bailey.
Alrighty, everybody. Welcome into the post-2025 NFL Draft edition of The Pump Fake. I am Jarrett Bailey. That is my good friend, JP Acosta. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe, like the video, do all that fun YouTube stuff. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review. How you doing, buddy? I know that, I'm sure this past weekend was busy for all of us, but you especially, being that this is kind of your thing.
I am tired, but it's a good tired, man. It was an eventful 2025 NFL draft. I think that's the word I'd use to describe it, but it was really fun. It was really fun breaking down the picks, and it is one of those things where I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see where these guys go.
I love it. So today, JP and I are going to be handing out some grades. Going to try to touch on all 32 teams at least a little bit, but definitely some more notable than others to go through. I'm going to start off with one that I really loved, how they drafted like their first 6 picks. I have never seen anything like it. I'm just like, yeah, it was a great pick. Shout out to John Schneider and the Seattle Seahawks, man. I was blown away by how efficient each pick seemed to be, the value that they got from Jalen Milroe going in the 3rd round. But just looking at their first 6, Gray Zabel, Nick Emenwari, Elijah Arroyo, Milroe, Riley Mills, Torrey Horton, like all of those guys made sense in terms of needs for the Seahawks, and all of them, especially Gray Zabel, Nick Emenwari, I think are going to have immediate impacts. Elijah Arroyo getting plugged into the offense as well. I love the potential of all of these guys, and I think that Seattle did a tremendous job at getting both value and guys who can be immediate impact players.
So the Seahawks did what most teams should do, and it's just draft the good athletes. I mean, I think I was on with Greg Rosendahl yesterday, and I think he said that the Seahawks draft class, in terms of relative athletic score, which is, it's the measuring metric for athleticism in the NFL. In terms of their RAS for entire draft class, is the highest RAS that has been tracked since 2003.
Wow.
That is insane. And it's not just that. It is John Schneider listening to himself and doing really good self-scouting, because I never thought he would actually draft a guard in the 1st round. And then he actually went and did it. And I think it's such a good guard that fits for their offense. It's outside zone. Gray Zabel's movement skills are really what stands out when you watch him play. Play strength really kind of comes and goes. But when you put him in between Olu Oluwatimi, who they're really high on, and Charles Cross, who is very good, those play strength concerns get a little mitigated. And then, like you said, like, I love what they did on days 2 and 3. Day 3 specifically is what really stood out to me. Going and adding Torrey Horton and Ricky White Jr. or Ricky White III at receiver. I think both those guys could play a lot for them early. Torrey Horton especially. I thought he was going to get drafted earlier. Damian Martinez is going to be nice thunder to whoever ends up being the Lightning in that rotation. I think Bryce Cabeau on day 3 is going to play their 6th tackle. I think he's going to have a role. He's going to be their future guy. And then Robbie Oots, who is a fullback for this offense that needs a fullback and thrives in 21 personnel. I'm a big fan of what they did, and it's really good self-scouting by John Schneider.
Yeah. Another team, we'll stick with the NFC West, Arizona, man. I really liked, they got a couple value picks to kick off the draft, getting Walter Nolan, and you could tell how pumped Jonathan Gannon was, because he looked like somebody on Maury Povich when they found out they're not the father. Like, he was hype in the war room. And then also getting, Siobhan Revel after he slipped in the draft.
It was Will Johnson.
It was Will Johnson. Yes, my apologies. Yes, so Will Johnson, a guy who was projected to be maybe a top 15 pick. The medical scared a lot of teams off, it seemed, but their loss is the gain of the Cardinals. And you look at like the pieces that they had in free agency to this defense that was already kind of climbing at the end of last year. And then you add in Nolan, you add in Will Johnson. I'm excited to see what a Cardinals team that won 8 games a year ago can do now with an improved defense. And I think that this is a team where, and I don't know it yet, we'll see what I predict them to do in terms of full game schedules when those come out. But this is a team that I won't be surprised if I'm picking them to sneak into the NFC playoffs as the 7 or 6 seed.
So I think I'm a little lower on the Cardinals draft class than most people. I ended up giving it like a B plus. I think
I gave it an A on USA Today, so we're kind of in the same ballpark at least.
I think it's a good class. I think the reaches on day 2 with Cody Simon and Jordan Birch. They have Jordan Birch listed as an outside linebacker, which is very concerning because he's like 290 pounds. You're not going to drop him into coverage. I thought Cody Simon was fine. I thought he'd be more of a day 3 guy. And then what they did on day 3 with adding Denzel Burke, Keaton Crawford, I think both those guys could challenge to play early, but their big fish are Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. Really big fan of Will Johnson. Was my second ranked corner. I know the knee stuff is kind of scary, but if it checks out, immediate high quality defender on that team. I wasn't as big of a fan of Nolan as most people. I get sort of the 3 technique upfield thing. I sort of worry about the run defense, but if you put them in that nucleus that they have in Arizona, I can get behind it. But I see what they're trying to do in terms of just adding athleticism and size.
I think it was you. We were talking about Walter Nolan and whatnot, and a bunch of Bills fans wanted him. And I think you were the one who said, well, they already have Ed Oliver, so there's kind of a lot in common there. Is that kind of the best comp that you can make for Walter Nolan?
Honestly, for Walter Nolan, a couple names come to mind. Ed Oliver's kind of like the absolute like high ceiling. But I think a guy like Milton Williams also comes to mind. And it makes sense because in the Fangio defense, we saw what Milton Williams was able to do in terms of you just rotate him in. And I think that's the big thing that the NFL is taking away from the Eagles Super Bowl victory is stock up as much as you can on defensive linemen and just rotate them in like hockey lines.
Yeah.
You need a third down pass rush unit, just sub in the third line. You need to stop the run early, bring in Jordan Davis. So I think that's something that the NFL is learning. And I think with Walter Nolan, I'm not sure how effective he's going to be on early downs, but he's going to play a lot on passing downs with that speed and the violence that he plays with.
Right. All right. Well, we heard 2 of my A's. Who were a couple teams that maybe you gave a high grade to in this draft?
So we did it as a group over at SB Nation, but there's only one team that got an A+ from us, and that is the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, really?
I was so blown away with what the Panthers did in this draft class. I think from top to bottom, they added depth, they maximized their quarterback that they already have, and they added a lot of high talent at value positions. I think adding Teteroa McMillan, adding T-Mac at 8 is super smart because of what Bryce Young is as a passer. He is a short to intermediate point guard. You need somebody who's going to separate early. Teteroa McMillan can separate with the best of them. I think that his game, he kind of gets typecasted as a jump ball guy when he's not really that, despite being 6'4". He's shifty. He's slippery after the catch. And I think that's going to really play a big role in that offense. It allows you to have Xavier Legette just run along the X and Y axis as a receiver. But then on days 2 and 3, I thought they cleaned up. Trading up for Nick Scorton, then adding Prince Umanmielen, who are very complimentary as edge defenders. Scorton's a little more heavy-handed, a little more powerful. He's going to play a lot with Jadeveon Clowney. And then Prince Umanmielen is just the pass rush, the speed, the bend. And I think that's something that's going to play a lot on third downs. I think if Nick Scorton can come in around 257, 260, could be a steal. He was a monster at that size at Purdue, put on bad weight at A&M. And then day 3, adding Trevor Etienne, who I think is going to play a lot on passing downs. Mitchell Evans is a guy that I thought was going to be a better pro than a college athlete. Then Cam Jackson, who's going to just be a space eater on early downs. Jimmy Horn Jr. is going to play a factor on special teams and in the slot, just giving them some more juice to the offense. And now you can say that the offense has layers. You know, you had Teteroa McMillan doing the intermediate stuff. You have him as the in-between guy. You have Xavier Legette doing all the stuff downfield. Jimmy Horn doing all the stuff downfield. You have Jalen Coker kind of doing the power slot stuff. Hunter Renfrow is going to do the Hunter Renfrow shit. And then Adam Thielen, who played phenomenal last season, is going to continue to be Adam Thielen. So you can just see what the vision is for the Panthers on both sides of the ball. And for that, I think that's a really, really good draft class. My favorite draft class.
Okay. See, I was somebody, and look, I say this as much as I can on the show because I don't want to come off as pretending to be a college football expert when I certainly am not. JP is far more that than I am. From a surface level, I looked at it and I wasn't like blown away. I didn't think it was horrible by any means, but I was surprised that they waited as long as they did to add any players to their secondary, which you and I have talked about as needing a little bit of help. So I think that was something that surprised me a little bit, but no, I'm surprised to hear how high you are on them. I think one that we'll both be high on was Dallas. I know that they reached a little bit for Tyler Booker, but getting Donovan Azaraku and getting Siobhan Revel, both great value picks. So Dallas was a team where like I was looking at them, I was like, kind of surprised how good they did in terms of the players they got.
This was a philosophy shifting draft for Dallas. I think Dallas saw the Philadelphia Eagles push teams around to get to their second championship in 8 years with the same formula that they've had for 8 years, while Dallas has flip-flopped for 8 years and hasn't even gotten to the NFC Championship game. The Cowboys decided enough of that. We are going to lean all the way in on running the damn ball. And I think Tyler Booker, initially, I had a little bit of questions about because he is a very good guard. He is only a gap scheme guard. So you can't play him in zone runs. You can't really have him out in space that much. But when you think about, oh my gosh, what's his name? It's Clayton something, the new offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. I can't believe I forgot his name. He was the offensive line coach with the Cardinals, Clayton Adams. And then they also, I think Connor Riley is their new offensive line coach at Kansas State, connected with Cooper Beebe. The center guard combo of Tyler Booker, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe is going to mash teams' head in the run game. It's going to be so freaking cool to watch. I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Dak Prescott as a passer. And then in the run game, I think adding Jadon Blue in the 5th round is going to bring them a whole lot more speed. But yeah, adding Donovan Azaraku was awesome. I think he's going to be sort of their designated pass rusher to Marshawn Nealon's like hammer on early downs. And if Siobhan Revel can get healthy, he was a 1st-round pick before he tore his ACL and had knee issues. So I think that was a really good draft. I think it was a solid draft, but a philosophy-shifting draft.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And a team who also shifted their philosophy a little bit in terms of the positions that they draft. They hadn't taken a receiver in the 1st round in over 20 years, but I love what Green Bay did, man. And I think getting Matthew Golden to go with Jordan Love, those two guys are going to make beautiful music together. They also drafted Savion Williams from TCU. So that tells me, all right, they're going to be moving on from at least one of their current receivers. And I'm thinking it's probably going to be Christian Watson, a guy who's dealt with a lot of injuries, obviously tore his ACL against Chicago in week 18. But I really liked that they were willing to get somebody that they knew could be their definitive number 1 receiver after having a bunch of number 2s over the past couple years. So they were a draft that I really liked. You seem to have a little bit of a trepidation when it comes to that.
I do. And my biggest question is, do you think Matthew Golden can be a 1?
Over the last 24 hours, I've shifted a little bit because he's wearing 22. And you know what? The rule of cool says no. That's a big problem.
A receiver wearing 22? What we doing here? Yeah. But my biggest thing for the Packers is Matthew Golden wins in the same way that Jaden Reed wins. He also wins in the same way that he's just a Z receiver who wins off of motion a lot, which they already have on the roster. They got 3 of those guys already on the roster. So you're building your offense out of Z receivers and then Savion Williams. I had him ranked 94th on my final top 100. I have a lot of questions about his long-term ability at receiver because he seems more like Jumbo Cordero Patterson than anything. But like you said, all this to me seems like Christian Watson is the odd man out. I think Anthony Belton is a weird pick for them because he's more of a gap scheme guard. He's massive, but they also just kind of revamped their offensive line. I wonder if they're going to run more gap scheme.
Sure.
So that brings up a lot of questions. I think Colin Oliver in late rounds is kind of a fun pick for them, but I think I leave Green Bay's draft with more questions than answers.
Okay. All right. Let's get somebody else that you liked in terms of their draft class. Who's another team that you were really pumped after draft the draft wrapped up.
I'm a little surprised that most people don't like the 49ers draft class.
Oh,
Like,
dude, they were one of my winners. They beefed up.
Yeah, I'm surprised 49ers fans are like, well, they didn't draft offense that early. The offense wasn't the problem last season. The defense was the one giving up 200 yards on the ground. So you see that, and the Niners go, okay, we're just never having that again. By adding Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins on the first 2 days of the draft.
And CJ West.
That is a statement. We are stopping the run in 2025. And I think the thing that gets lost with Mykel Williams was he was playing in the tight front at Georgia. So he was basically a defensive tackle at Georgia. Hurt his ankle really bad first game of the season. If you watch 2023 Mykel Williams, that is what you're looking for. I think he has the potential to be a superstar, and he's only 20 years old. He won't be 21 until the season starts. Alfred Collins is not there to rush the passer. He is there to be a glass eater. He is one of the best run defenders, pound for pound, in this entire draft class. CJ West, also incredibly very fun. Upton Stout is a San Francisco 49ers nickel. He's 5'8", but plays so much bigger. He plays with his hair on fire, and I think he's going to be used a lot on those design blitzes and stuff from nickel. I'm a little worried about the Malik Mustafa injury and him being out for the rest of for 2025, but Marquise Siegel kind of fills in that spot. And then on day 3, Connor Colby is going to push for starting time at guard. So I'm a really big fan of what the Niners did. And it is about changing their identity and changing their philosophy.
Yeah, and, I saw a bunch of 49ers people who were especially hype about it because, you look at that defensive line in specific, like over the last 3 years, they've lost so much guys. Like anybody not named Nick Bosa has pretty much left. Hargrave went to Minnesota this past year. Arik Armstead went to your Jaguars last year. So they've lost a lot of big name guys in the middle. Javon Kinlaw, who was there a couple years ago, who is no longer there. So over the past few years, they've lost a lot of that interior presence, and I think they did a really good job of recouping that. In one draft.
Yeah, their best years stopping the run were with DJ Jones as their one tech. And just having a guy, again, it's the whole hockey lines mantra.
Right.
You could just rotate guys in. And I think that's something that the Niners are going to try and do. Robert Saleh coming back might be the thing that really helps bring the Niners back as a defense. So I'm a big fan of what they did in the draft.
All right. Let's talk about some teams that we weren't super duper crazy about. And I have a feeling you and I are going to be on complete opposite polar spectrums when it comes to this team. The Chargers after day 1 pissed me off, man. I was like, what do you, why? You had so many potential receivers that you could give Justin Herbert, Matthew Golden being one of them, and he was the very next pick. And then they took Trey Harris later on. I thought that Elick Amanor would be a better fit for them because of just his run blocking ability. He just feels like a guy that would thrive in a Greg Roman offense, and his ability to win both off the line of scrimmage, and he can beat you after the catch as well. He made more sense of a pick to me, and I'm surprised he fell as far as he did. There's just a lot of things where I'm like, man, you just signed Najee Harris. And whether you think he's the long-term option or not, whatever, you take a running back here when I think he had much more pressing needs on the roster. So that they annoyed me a lot.
You probably won't be surprised I gave the Chargers an A.
Yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest.
And I think it's because I know they signed Najee Harris. Najee Harris is not there to hit home runs. Najee Harris is there for singles and doubles and to eat innings. Omari and Hampton is the home run. I think the Chargers offense is built to be explosive on the ground. And Omari and Hampton is the most explosive gap scheme runner not named Ashton Junty in this draft class. Trey Harris, I actually think, is going to complement Ladd McConkey really well. Just in being an outside receiver, the Chargers don't really ask their outside receivers to be involved as blockers that much. That's more the inside guys. And plus, because they play so much 22 and have multiple tight ends on the field, I think that's why a guy like Trey Harris works, because he has a lot of wiggle to him after the catch. And I think, again, it is about the Chargers offense is being explosive on the ground, meticulous through the air. They're going to try and cut you with paper cuts in the passing game. And then as soon as you get tired of them hitting you with 5-yard passes, 8-yard passes, 40-yard run. And I think that's something that they did really well. Jamari Caldwell is going to be a 1-to-1 Puna Ford replacement in the run game. I think that pick rules. I think what they did on day 3 with Keandre Lambert-Smith, who again adds some more speed to the offense to allow Ladd McConkey to work in the in-between game. Aronde Gadsden is a tight end by name. That is a big receiver.
That's a big slot receiver, basically. So I did like that pick. Yes.
That's a big slot receiver. So I think, again, you just add more speed and verticality to the offense, which is what everybody kind of wants from the Chargers. But I think it's also understanding what they want to be. So I was a really big fan of what they did.
All right. I think I was also on an island. And by the way, and I've said this already on previous shows, I go on Jacksonville radio a lot and I fight tooth and nail to defend Trevor Lawrence. And then I said, yeah, the Jaguars probably give up a little bit too much to draft Travis Hunter. And everybody, and what's the Jacksonville area code? Do you know it?
904.
Everybody in that area code found me and told me that I was an idiot. But that being said, I did like a lot of their picks. I like the Jack Kaiser pick. I think getting Wyatt Millum was good. Bishal Tutin's going to be a fun addition to that backfield. So I thought that they were a team that, even though they gave up a little bit too much for my liking to get Travis Hunter, overall, the rest of their picks were fine. So I figured that I would talk about your Jaguars while I have you here.
I'm going to be so honest. Initially, I was like, that's a lot of picks. And then I was like, I don't care. Like I would do that trade if the Browns asked for that same trade haul 100 times over. I would do it every single time. You don't take risks. You don't take gambles without giving up stuff, without giving up that opportunity. Fair. I'm not worried about it because Travis Hunter is a franchise altering talent. I think we talk about like generational players and we say like generational talent. We kind of throw it out a little too much.
Lot. Yeah.
Travis Hunter is generational because you're never going to get a guy who played 85% of snaps on both sides of the ball ever again and was wide receiver 1 and CB1 in this class. The Jaguars' biggest needs this offseason were wide receiver and cornerback, and they just solved it in one blow.
But there's no way he's going to be able to play both ways in the NFL for 100% of snaps, right?
Look, man, I'm not going to be the one to say he won't. And I think the Jaguars are going to give him the opportunity to try and do both, which is what this entire process is for the Jaguars. They are not afraid to take risks. And that's something that I can appreciate from a front office that actually wants to go out and put their process into execution. I actually think that I would do that trade over again. Like I said, I'm not too worried about it. I do love the Bishal Tutin pick, like you said. I think if he kind of narrows out the fumbling issues, I think you could have a really explosive back. I love LaQuint Allen later on in the draft. I think he's going to be a really reliable player for them. You have a loaded running back room. I wonder who gets the axe there. Jack Kaiser, incredibly fun, intangibly rich. You heard intangibly rich all the time in Jacksonville. Jack Kaiser is intangibly rich. But I really like Caleb Ransaw as well. He plays inside out. He's going to start at safety.
That's the Tulane guy, right?
Yeah, I like his eyes better at safety, and he's an explosive tackler. So I'm a big fan of what they did. I wouldn't say that it's like an A+.
I gave it a B+.
I give it like A-. I think the Travis Hunter trade, it depends on just what you think of the picks. But for me, I don't care. I'd do it again. That guy's awesome.
That's fair. All right. Let's talk about the flip side of that coin actually real quick with the Browns, because throughout the first 2 days, they had my favorite draft. I thought trading back was good. They get a really good player in Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins for the backfield, Harold Fannin, who they got in the 3rd round. And I was, damn Browns. Like, they're getting really good value here. Carson Schwessinger from UCLA. Like, they were making really good picks that I liked. And then obviously the quarterback dipshittery took place. And I was like, okay, well, the Browns are going to do what the Browns do. But overall, like, even with taking 2 quarterbacks and that definitely taking them down a peg, I think that they got a nice horde of talent.
I have a lot of questions about what the Browns are doing. Not only drafting Dylan. First of all, I kind of feel bad for all the quarterbacks in this situation, but Dylan Gabriel getting drafted day 2 and then being replaced immediately the next day, having the entire Browns social media feed full of Shedeur Sanders, and you got one post. Yeah, I'd be a little mad, but hey, he's gonna take that as motivation in this rookie minicamp. I think adding 2 running backs is fine, but I also think both guys are very similar. They don't have very good vision and are more just explosive gap scheme runners. I wish they would have added to the offensive line a little bit more because that offensive line didn't have a lot of depth last season. And I think Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger are awesome. 2 of my favorite prospects in this class, but how they managed the bevy of picks that they got after the Travis Hunter trade, I have a lot of questions about.
Well, for them, I think the biggest thing obviously was getting the first round pick next year, because if they don't like any of the 900 quarterbacks that they currently have, they can go quarterback hunting in a supposedly deep class next year. Let's play a game deciding how we think these 5 quarterbacks are going to end. I think, in just my opinion, I think Flacco will probably start week 1. Shador will start very soon after. Dylan Gabriel will probably be the guy that gets traded somewhere like the Rams for a 6th or something of that nature. Kenny Pickett will do something in the preseason that makes everybody laugh and say, how does this guy still have a job in the end? Like he'll fumble the snap and try like drop kicking a pass to Jamari Thrash in like week 2 of the preseason. We're going to be like, what the hell is he doing out there, man? I think that's kind of my thoughts. Did I miss any quarterbacks in the Browns quarterback room?
The one that's making the most money.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Well, he'll get banished to hell. We don't got to worry about him.
It is so funny that they have 5 quarterbacks, and the ones that are talked about getting playing time are not the 230 million guy who retore his Achilles. It's so funny, and I think he deserves the worst. So
yeah, he's gonna get sent to the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like they're gonna play Hellfire in the background when they release him.
Get sent to Guangdong.
Yeah.
But I think how it's gonna go is Kenny Pickett gets cut in the offseason.
Okay.
He will not be on this team. He will not be on the 53. Joe Flacco's gonna start, but if Shador is as talented as I think, as everybody else thinks, he's gonna be their quarterback by like week 8.
Yeah, I said week 7. I said week 7 in my
this is not going to be like if Shador is Shador is probably better than Dylan Gabriel. He's probably going to be their backup.
Dude, when Mel Kiper's reaction when Dylan Gabriel got drafted over Shador Sanders
was about to have a heart attack.
Bro was crashing out on live television.
I understand, but also you can't crash out on live TV.
No, you cannot. You gotta relax.
You gotta rein it in. You gotta keep the tie straight.
Yes,
but
yes.
Shador Sanders is better than Dylan Gabriel. Should probably be the backup for Joe Flacco to start the season. I think schematically, if any team is going to be a one where Shador Sanders succeeds, it's the Browns. So we'll see what happens. But like you said, I kind of think they're just punting on this QB class and just throwing them like, hey, whoever wants it, go get it. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, they have 2 first-round picks. They can get a quarterback next year.
They sure do. And I'm horrified that I'm going to get my heart broken, and it's going to end up being Drew Aller, and it's going to make me really sad that he ends up there. I really don't want that. Yeah, like the entire thing is so – because 4 of these guys that they have in the quarterback room are new additions, and obviously 5 being Deshaun and him being, like I said, banished to the shadow realm. So basically, they have 4 new quarterbacks that they're just going to let duke out during this offseason, whether, in OTAs, rookie minicamp for Gabriel and Shador, mandatory minicamp, and then throughout the summer at training camp. I'm definitely intrigued to see who comes out on top. But I do think that, I think we're on the same page where Flacco's probably going to start the season. Within 2 months, Shador will be the starter. We already got David Njoku putting Instagram stories up, going to bat for Shador Sanders. So it feels like there's certainly some guys in the locker room who are ready for him to just start now.
If I may add,
go ahead.
There is a receiver who 5 minutes ago was reported by Aaron Wilson to have visited the Browns.
Oh, who was that?
This is the one receiver that offense absolutely needs in terms of just vibes. Deontay Johnson.
Oh yes.
If you had Deontay Johnson in that offense, somebody will not make it to the end of the season.
Oh, man. I would kill to be a fly on the wall in that locker room, bro.
See, what I wanted was
Deontay Johnson, by the way, just making his tour around the AFC North right now.
He just loves the area, What I wanted secretly was for Aaron Rodgers to, a week before the draft, sign with the Steelers,
and then have
and then
Shador
the
get drafted to
Steelers
Pittsburgh.
get drafted by the Steelers draft Shador,
Yeah.
and that just be the funniest offense of all time with DK Metcalf and George Pickens throwing punches at each other like the Hulk and the Thing, and Shador and Aaron Rodgers just trying to like out aura farm each other.
Yeah. I'm very glad that didn't happen as a Steelers fan. Well, now we're just kind of waiting for Aaron to make this thing official, as we have been for the last month and a half. I might as well. We talked about your favorite team. Let's talk about the Steelers real quick. Overall, I think that Andy Weidl just said, "Yeah, I came from Philadelphia. We're just going to do that," and that's fine.
I think their draft was okay.
I also said, "Yeah, go." Sorry,
I like their first 2 picks.
Me too.
Derek Harmon feels like an AFC North player. One of the better comps that I saw for Derek Harmon this offseason came from Brett Coleman, and I heavily agree. It's Stephon Tuitt.
Yep.
They brought in Stephon Tuitt 2.0, which I think rules.
Yeah.
Derek Harmon is built to be an AFC North player. Upper body strength out the wazoo, a very, very functional pass rusher, run defender. He gives them some youth up front. Caleb Johnson is built for the outside zone run scheme. He is the best zone runner in this class. Great vision, footwork. He's just not fast. That's the only reason that he didn't go early, is because he's just not that fast. But then being the complement to Jaylen Warren is really good. Then the Steelers draft goes off the rails. Then they went out and drafted Jack Sawyer.
I didn't see that one coming whatsoever either.
Like, I'm not going to. Why? That's just like, why? Jack Sawyer is a high effort guy, but 31-inch arms, slender frame, gets pushed around the run game. What do you do with that in the AFC North?
I mean, he's right now going to be their 4th pass rusher who comes in to give breathers to guys.
Yeah, if you're giving breathers to like TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith, sure.
Yeah.
But that's what you have Herbig for. Herbig is the same player. One. Herbig is the same player, but also a better pass rusher with more bend.
I'll give you my theory on that. I think after this coming season, so in the 2026 offseason, they're probably going, if I had to guess, they want to make Nick Herbig the 2nd pass rusher. So they're probably going to try to trade Alex Highsmith, if I had to guess, to give them more of a presence off the edge. Alex Highsmith's a better run defender than Herbig, but I think overall as a pass rusher, Herbig's better. And then they can elevate Jack Sawyer to be that 3rd guy. They extended Highsmith last offseason, but in 2026, his dead cap hit, goes way down. So that would be my guess is what they try to do, especially if they pay TJ Watt and they're going to have to free up some money somewhere. And I think Alex Highsmith could end up being that casualty. He's not a bad player by any means, but he's also not a game-changing player, so they can afford to send him somewhere for a draft pick. So that's just my theory on it.
Yeah, I think adding Y.A. Black is, again, Pittsburgh Steeler defender. Big, tall, long arms. He doesn't have to change colors. Yeah. He's going to be their backup nose, helping the run game. Don't ask him to rush a passer. I think drafting Jack Sawyer when you could have drafted Shador, again, depends on what you think or what they thought of Shador in the interview, but drafting Jack Sawyer there instead of Shador feels really silly. And then going and drafting Will Howard, I'm kind of just like, okay, they are also punting on the quarterback.
That is a team that is looking at 2026 NFL draft for a quarterback.
Yeah, they're going to be in the QB hunt this year. But if you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you're not going to be picking high enough.
Again, that they also are projected to have a bunch of comp picks next year. I think they're going to try to pull a Buffalo for Josh Allen. They traded up twice in 2018 to get him. That's probably, if I had to map out what they're trying to map out, I think that's what they're planning on doing.
Yeah, and again, if the rumors about George Pickens being traded come true, you maybe get another mid-round pick for Pickens.
Yeah.
So I can see them kind of loading up on picks for 2026. But again, it just feels like the process there at quarterback is kind of flawed. So I wasn't a big fan of how they approached day 3, but their 2 picks on day 1 and 2 were good. Those are Steeler picks.
All right. Now let's talk about some more teams that we really didn't like. What are the Dolphins doing, dude?
Okay. Allow me to defend the Dolphins.
Oh, God.
I actually think they had a solid draft.
I got to tell you, they took the Arizona guard in the 2nd round, and like even throughout this entire draft process, I have no idea who that guy is.
So what has been the Dolphins' biggest issue in the Mike McDaniel era? Would you say it's them not being able to win in the playoffs, or win when it gets cold, or win when teams hit them in the mouth?
Mm-hmm.
You know what they did? They went out and tried to stop getting hit in the mouth. Kenneth Grant gonna stop them from getting hit in the mouth in the run game. Jonas Savaianai, who is the guard from Arizona, physical as hell. He's going to bring them some physicality up front on the offensive line, some physicality that they just have never had offensively. That is my biggest problem with the Dolphins in the Mike McDaniel. There's too many Mike Mix.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
Mike McDaniel's offenses are never physical. They're one of the worst short yardage teams for like the last 3 years, and it's always been a problem in the playoffs. We remember like all the trick play bullshit they had to try and do against the Chiefs that got snuffed out on 3rd and 4th and short in the cold because they just hit them in the mouth. So I think adding Kenneth Grant, adding Jonas Savaianai, and then doubling down on stopping getting hit in the mouth on defense with Jordan Phillips and Zeke Biggers is just really smart drafting. I would have loved to see them double dip at corner, given the kind of up in the air status of Jalen Ramsey. But for a team that wants to stop being pushed around, this was a good first step. A solid B+ draft.
I'm surprised that they didn't do anything at the tackle position. I guess that, speaks to the faith that they have in Patrick Paul. But I was surprised to see that they didn't try to even take a flyer on a tackle just in case that doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work out, then they'll just go into 2026 needing a tackle. I think this tackle class upcoming has a lot more true tackles in this class, not tackles who can be guards. But what Patrick Paul brings is physicality, and they need that up front.
Over under 3.5 games that Quinn Ewers starts this year at quarterback from Miami.
Ooh, under. I'm going hard under because I don't even think Quinn Ewers beats Zach Wilson.
I forgot. You know what? I got to tell you, I honestly forgot Zach Wilson was there. He's wearing 0. He's wearing
0 now, which is hilarious.
That is very funny.
So I think Quinn Ewers starts maybe a game.
Okay.
Because, again, adding a quarterback with durability issues to that QB room is just smart drafting all around.
All right, here's one team that I know that we'll both we'll come together and we'll really just hate together. The New Orleans Saints.
Yes, this was the team that I wanted to get to.
Yes. What? I came into this draft saying the Saints are by far like the least exciting team in the NFL, and somehow they got even less exciting.
So I'm not mad at the Kelvin Banks pick in round 1. I think he's more of a guard than a tackle. But Tali Fuaga is also at tackle. Trevor Penning's moving over to guard. I think if you just want to put your best 5 out there, especially with Ryan Ramczyk retiring, not mad at that pick. Tyler Shuck at 40 blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because, again, their QB room doesn't really inspire confidence. I think Tyler Shuck is more of a high-value backup spot starter, given that he's 26 and also with a litany of injuries. And you draft that guy at 40, which makes me, again, think they're punting on this QB class.
Felt very Brandon Whedon-y.
Yes, very Brandon Whedon-ish. I don't know what to do with that. This is not exactly inspiring confidence going into a season where Derek Carr probably will not be around. I thought Vernon Broughton might have been a little bit of a reach, which is I hate to say that I hated their draft because they drafted a lot of my guys. I think Danny Stutzman and Quincy Riley are awesome. Devin Neal is going to be a really good fit in that offense. But it's just the process with it. And, I mean, good on Kellen Moore for getting his guy at quarterback, but that's not a very inspiring QB pick.
Yeah, let's see what their quarterback room right now is. Tyler Shuck, obviously Derek Carr for the time being, Jake Haener, and Spencer Rattler. Good God in heaven.
I will let you know now. Garrett Nussmeier plays at LSU and will be eligible for the draft this upcoming year.
Is that who you think that they've got their old telescope pointed at right now?
The Saints offensive coordinator is his father.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we
there you
write
go.
that in. All right.
Yeah, there it is. And then, there's the whole Arch Manning thing. I don't think he enters the draft.
You know what? You're not the first person to tell me that.
I mean, he's only played 2 meaningful games.
Yes. I think that going back, getting a ton of NIL money, getting more experience makes so much sense.
Yeah, but I did not like what the Saints did very much.
All right. Now we're going to go through a speed run of teams that we did not talk about. We'll just do a quick little thing on it. The Atlanta Falcons, I gave a B-2. They would have been so much higher if they didn't give up a first-round pick next year to trade up for James Pierce. What in God's name was that?
I also gave him a B-, and the reason it would have been higher is they didn't give up a first-round pick for James Pierce. Because, like, the Giants trade up for Jackson Dart 1 pick before you and didn't give up
a third.
They gave up a third for a quarterback.
Yeah, bro.
I also think this is sort of Terry Fontenot being desperate. Like, this team has to win now. And again, it's the NFC South, so like, who knows? But
Right.
Trading the future first feels very risky. And now the Rams have 2 first-round picks to burn on whatever disgruntled star wants to trade.
Yep. All right. So the Baltimore Ravens, I gave them a B. I liked their first 2 picks. Obviously, Malachi Starks is great, and Mike Green slid because of the non-football reasons. And outside of that, like, it was fine. It wasn't bad, but there wasn't anything there. I was like, oh yeah, Ravens. Outside of the first 2 picks.
So the Ravens, I gave a B+. I think Malachi Starks was their best pick. I think that he's one of the steals of the first round. Mike Green obviously fell for off the field reasons. He's going to be their designated pass rusher. But I think adding Carson Vincent, Emory Jones are going to potentially bring some competition to guard. And then I like adding Aeneas Peebles, Robert Longerbeam. I think LeJontay Wester is going to play on special teams early. And then again, they drafted a kicker. It's over for Justin Tucker.
It is Jover for Justin Tucker. All right, Buffalo Bills. You know what? I gave him an A. I was bitching and moaning about a receiver, and then Brandon Beam went on Buffalo Radio today and told everybody to stop bitching and moaning about a receiver. Like, all right, fair enough. Max Harrison, the fastest guy in the draft, cornerback out of Kentucky. They took 3 corners in this draft, by the way. And I think 3 defensive linemen, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, Deion Walker. They want to stop getting pushed around in the playoffs on defense, and that was pretty evident.
So the problem with that, I gave them a B, but I was supposed to give them a B-. The problem with not wanting to get pushed around is that TJ Sanders is also a 290-pound defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's going. His best plays were against the pass, and in the run game, he's slanting across. That feels like a Bills pick that they already had. That feels like Dwayne Carter, who they already drafted. Landon Jackson is absolutely a Buffalo Bill. Like, that was obvious from the jump. 6'7", long arms and explosive through defenders without much bend. That is a Buffalo Bill. Very AJ Epineza-ish. He's gonna be depth. He can eventually become a quality starter. This class kind of hinges on, and honestly, before I say what I say, I think they're just tripling down on corner makes sense given how their depth was absolutely obliterated.
Yeah.
By injury last season. I actually think Hairston's a really nice fit for what they want to do on the field. Dorian Strong is going to play a lot. Jackson Hawes feels like such a Bills pick. Chase Lunt is going to be their 6th offensive lineman. Incredibly high ceiling, high potential. Deion Walker feels like the key to unlocking everything.
There's a lot of Omos vibes with Deion Walker.
I have a little bit of. I want to believe in Deion Walker. But you can't ask him to defend the run because he's 6'7" with a slim lower body. So you can't really ask him to be a nose. Sure. That's what he's going to have to do in Buffalo because he's the biggest person on the team. So I just wonder what you do with him. And he's coming off a broken back. So
not great.
I have questions. That's what I'll say. I gave him a B because I see the vision and they just drafted their type again. But I have a lot of questions about the longevity.
All right, that's fair. All right, let's keep it going here. We already talked about the Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears. Colston Love in the first round. That kind of surprised me a little bit, but Ben Johnson very much sees him as his potential Sam Laporta in Chicago. And I really like the pick of Luther Burden in round 2.
Yeah, I gave them a B+. I like Luther Burden. I love Colston Loveland. I think Ozzie Trapillo was a little bit of a reach. And then on day 3, I kind of think they just kind of lost their mind a little bit. They started throwing Ruben Hippolyte, sure. I like Josh Frazier, but I also kind of wonder if Luther Burden being there feels like a little bit of an omen for DJ Moore because Luther Burden's best comparison throughout this entire process was DJ Moore. So it feels like Moore could be on the trading block, but I like what they did in just terms of getting more help around their quarterback.
All right. The Bengals, I did not like the Bengals draft. I gave them a C-. Shamar Stewart, I feel like they already kind of had Shamar Stewart and Miles Murphy. And in terms of like getting a big impact player on the edge. I just don't know if he's going to be that. And then Demetrius Knight, Dylan Fairchild, Barrett Carter, like none of these dudes like stuck out to me as like, oh, okay, that's a really good quality value pick even on late day 2, early day 3. So nothing that they did really excited me.
So I gave them a C+. I love the Shamar Stewart pick. I was always a big Shamar Stewart fan. I understand the comparisons to Miles Murphy. The problem there is that Shamar Stewart is a much better athlete than Miles Murphy at just about the same size. I think he's more explosive. I think he's more powerful. And I think that he's good. I think Miles Murphy might have better technique, but I think Shamar Stewart's going to be a really high ceiling prospect they can just take a swing on. Now, I believe in Al Golden. Demetrius Knight is cool. I thought they kind of reached for him. I think he is like their 1-to-1 Jermaine Pratt replacement because his thing is he is good against the run and he's a missile in space. Like you'll see he was the spy on Jalen Milroe and he hawked Jalen Milroe down multiple times, which was like, oh, you're like 240, 250 running down the fastest guy in the SEC. So I thought that was really cool. But Dylan Fairchild, I'm not really a big fan of Dylan Fairchild. Barrett Carter's fine. I think he's kind of the space rangy player. And then like I think that a couple of their best picks were on day 3 with Jalen Rivers and Taj Brooks. I think Jalen Rivers is going to play more at guard than Fairchild will, and Taj Brooks is a nice compliment to what they have in the running back room already. It's just where they picked the guys that they did. If they picked Demetrius Knight in round 3, that'd be fine. If they picked it's tough because Tate Ratledge went off the board after picking Demetrius Knight. So I kind of just think like Tate Ratledge was right there. But it just depends on what happens with Fairchild.
All right. Denver Broncos, I gave a B- to. I really love the Jahdae Barron selection. I think RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant were both fine. Outside of those picks, anything that stuck out to you?
I gave him a B+. I thought Pat Bryant was a little bit of a reach.
I thought that he went earlier than I think a lot of people expected.
He went way earlier he went early. I thought he'd be more of a early day 3 guy. Where Dante Thornton went, I thought would be where Pat Bryant would go because of the slow 40, but it also feels very redundant to some of the players that they already have on the roster. Guys who aren't that fast or explosive in the offense, but RJ Harvey's an incredible pick. Jahdae Barron is they might have the nastiest secondary like in the NFL next year. It's going to be really fun to watch. And then I like Savion Jones and Q Robinson. I think both those guys are going to play early. I think they have a lot of potential. Savion Jones kind of reminds me of John Franklin Myers, who's already on the team. And then Q Robinson has a lot of potential as a pass rusher and is really impactful on special teams.
All right. Detroit Lions, I like the Tyleik Williams selection. And then Ahmad Hassanein, is that how we say his name? I probably just butchered that. Hassanein. It was close enough. Everybody seemed to really like that pick in the 6th round. So I made note of it because everybody kept talking about it. What do you make of him? I'm not going to pretend to know a whole lot about him.
So Ahmad Hassanein, you can go look up what he did at the combine. He was yelling at Chuck Smith, the defensive line coach for the Ravens, during the drills and like firing up the coach, and the coach is yelling back at him. If you watch and if you listen to what some of the Detroit Lions beat writers had to say after first meeting Hassanein, where he was like, I will go out there and die for Dan Campbell. That is such a Dan Campbell player. If you talk to anybody from Boise State or anybody who's interacted with Ahmad Hassanein, he is such a Dan Campbell player when it comes to motor, when it comes to the way that he plays with heavy hands. And again, like he will bite a kneecap off. But this draft for the Lions is very Dan Campbell-ish. Tyleik Williams, monster run defender. Tate Ratledge, gonna eat kneecaps, really nice in between. I think he's gonna be a really good guard for a long time in this in the NFL.
I did feel like Isaac Tesla felt like a big reach.
I was like, whoa, okay, man. But he's a blocker from the slot with speed, and that kind of, need that. It fits their mold. And then adding Hassanein, I think Miles Frazier was a great pick on day 3. And then Dominic Lovett and Dan Jackson feel like Dan Campbell special teamers. So I actually gave it an A because I love what they did in the trenches. They got younger, they got a little healthier, and they got stronger in the run game.
All right. The Houston Texans, I gave a B- to. They took both Iowa State receivers. We'll see if Ariante Irsay, how good he'll be at tackle. But overall, I thought it was fine.
We are in sync here. I gave them a B-.
Right.
I love how they just look at Iowa State tape and go, give me those guys, because Xavier Hutchinson, Jaden Higgins, and Jalen Noel on the same team feels very much like they just watched 1 year of Iowa State and we're just like, okay, I think we're good here. Ariante Irsay could play at guard or tackle for them, but it also shows that they have a lot of faith in what they did up front by not double dipping on the offensive line. I gave it a B- partially because trading up for Woody Marks is crazy.
That was. I didn't even know who that. If you told me Woody, I think I quoted your tweet saying, if you would have told me Woody Marks was the head coach of Oklahoma in like 1973, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a transfer from Mississippi State to USC. Good pass catcher, but I feel like there are better running backs on the board. And then they traded a future third to come up and get him, which is also like, what are we doing here?
By the way, breaking news into the pump fake, the Pittsburgh Steelers are signing veteran wide receiver Robert Woods.
Oh, sure. More receivers for Aaron Rodgers to throw under the bus.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that's that. The Indianapolis Colts, Tyler Warren, everybody mocked Tyler Warren to go there, and I was like, okay, if everybody's doing it, surely it won't happen. It happened. Very fun player in Tyler Warren. DJ Giddens, I think, would be a good compliment for Jonathan Taylor, and Tim Smith in the 6th round felt like a good value pick on the defensive line, so I gave them a B.
I gave him a B+. This feels like a Chris Ballard draft with Tyler Warren. I'm pretty sure they sprinted up to the board with that Tyler Warren pick. They were hoping he would fall to them. JT Tuimoloau feels like a Lou Anarumo, a Chris Ballard edge. Long, powerful, high floor, low ceiling kind of pass rush who will rotate in. I actually like the Justin Wally pick. Kind of a late riser in this draft process, can play inside or outside. I think he's going to back up Kenny Moore at nickel, and I think he's going to be a really fun player.
All right, Kansas City Chiefs. God, it pissed me off when they draft Jalen Royals, because of course Jalen Royals would fall to the Kansas City Chiefs. They took, was it Josh Simmons, the Ohio State tackle? The medicals. We're gonna have to see if that clears. But outside of those two picks, nothing really blew me away. I give them a B-.
I gave them an A+. This was a Kansas City Chief draft where I was like, they did it again. I thought they would have to trade up for Josh Simmons. They traded back and still got Josh Simmons. I think adding Omar Norman Lott is such a Spags pick in terms of what they like from their defensive tackles, in terms of twitch, in terms of the ability to cut across guards' faces laterally. Ashton Gelati is also such a Chiefs defensive lineman. He's very similar to George Karlaftis with heavy hands, powerful. You should see what he does to like tight ends in the run game. He just blasts them off the face of the earth. And then adding Noel Williams on day 2 was really fun.
Noel Williams, by the way, 7 interceptions last year with Cal. I mean, that's a ball hawking guy.
Again, the production on the ball. Day 3, they said Jalen Royal is going to add some juice to that offense. And then Brashard Smith as their last pick is just incredibly good. So I think they did it again.
All right. You know what? I think you talked me into it a little bit, especially with the Noel Williams pick. So maybe I was a little bit too low. The Las Vegas Raiders, Ashton Jeanty and Darian Porter, loved both of those picks. Who else did they get? They did a bunch of weird shit, though, like late day 2 and on day 3, going like tackle, back-to-back picks. I was like, all right, that feels a little bit odd. And then quarterback. I know that they're probably going to turn Tommy Melton to a receiver, whatever. That's fine. But still, I gave him a B because I like the first 2 picks a lot, but then all the weird shit happened. I was like, all right, I saw that. You're not, it's going to get mentioned.
They also got an A+ from me.
Oh my Lord.
I'm such a big fan of this draft class because it's a culture changing draft class. They want to have an identity, and their identity is it's going to be hard as hell to tackle them. With adding Jack Bech, adding Ashton Jeanty, 2 of the toughest tackles in this class at their positions. I think Bech is such a good compliment to a guy they drafted later, Dante Thornton, to kind of open up the offense. And then you add Brock Bowers onto that, who's already hard as hell to tackle. Good luck trying to tackle these guys. Darian Porter feels like a Pete Carroll corner. Limited reps. I have a lot of questions about if it's going to work out, but guys who are that athletic, I'm willing to take a swing on. One of my favorite picks, I think Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant make a lot of sense. Caleb Rogers is going to play guard. So it's tackle. Technically only because he played tackle in college. He's going to move the guard at in the NFL. Charles Grant, super big fan. I think he's going to be a high plus starter in a few
He's the William and Mary one, right?
Yes, I think he's going to be a super starter next couple of years, and it's good insurance for whatever happens with Colton Miller. And in day 3, I think they kind of cleaned up. Adding JJ Pegues, I think rules. Tonka Hemingway is awesome. Tommy Millott and Cam Miller are very funny. I think Tommy Millott, again, he got announced as a wide receiver. He's going to play wide receiver. The dude can legit, like he's a legit very good athlete. Like I have to pull up his RAS, but he legitimately is a good athlete. Like not just like for a quarterback. He ran a 4.39 40.
Oh wow.
And had a 41-inch vertical. Like this dude is a good athlete. He just played at Montana State. So they're going to turn him to a receiver. I think it's awesome. I'm a big fan of what Pete Carroll did.
All right. The Los Angeles Rams getting an extra first-round pick next year. That definitely bumped up their grade. Taking Terrence Ferguson as early as they did felt a little bit odd, but I like Jarquez Hunter. I think the addition of Pooh Paul as well were both good picks, so they get a B from me.
I gave him a B-. I love adding a future first-round pick. Everything else they did after that was kind of like, what the fuck, man? Terrence Ferguson that high blows my mind. Josiah Stewart's a really fun pick for them. Jarquez Hunter runs really hard. He's going to be a nice third back in that offense. I think Pooh Paul is their best pick, and then Kanata Mumpfield was 2 of their best picks on day 3. Both those guys, I think Pooh Paul could start for them now.
I was just going to say they needed a starting off-ball linebacker, so it could very well end up being Paul.
Yeah, I think Pooh Paul's going to start for them immediately.
All right, Minnesota Vikings, Donovan Jackson getting stronger on the offensive line. Ty Felton later on in the draft as well. Kobe King, day 3, another off-ball linebacker pick there that we're talking about. So Minnesota, I also gave a B. I gave them a B-.
I gave them a B. I thought Ty Felton got drafted early, but again, it's for the speed. Donovan Jackson, incredible pick. He was the best guard in the class for me. He's going to help solidify an offensive line that kind of got ravaged by injury. So I'm a big fan of what they did there. Ty Ingram Dawkins is a Brian Flores defensive lineman, versatility along the front. So I'm curious to see what he does there.
All right. The New England Patriots, one of my favorite drafts, maybe my favorite draft. They get a big old A from me. I love what they did. Will Campbell, a left tackle. His interview immediately after getting drafted, he's like, I'm going to die for Drake May. I'm like, fuck yeah, you're going to do it, Will Campbell. Travion Henderson in the backfield. Kyle Williams, I love everything that they did.
I also gave him an A. Initially, the Will Campbell pick got a B+ for me. Then he said, I'm going to fight and die to protect my quarterback. And then I moved it to an A because I'm like, hell yeah, brother. Like, that's exactly what we're looking for. And I just think they're following the philosophy of Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, earlier this offseason, I think it was like right after he got the job, was interviewed, and they were talking about what he wants from his offense. And he talked about winning yards after the catch. And I think they added 2 guys who win with yards after the catch and easy separation. So expect a lot more gap scheme from them. Expect to be a more power and counter type team. And then Henderson to be kind of the juice in that offense. But I'm a big fan of Braden Swinton day 3 and Josh Farmer.
All right. The New York Giants traded up for Jackson Dart. Didn't love that. Abdul Carter, like, they'll get to the quarterback. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter. That'll be a damn good defensive line. But man, like Jackson Dart, that's going to decide a lot of things.
I wanted to give them a higher grade because I like everything that they did outside of trading up for the quarterback. I don't think they should have traded up for the quarterback because you probably could have got him in day 2.
Yeah.
I don't think he was a round 1 quarterback. But Abdul Carter is going to be awesome. I really do wonder what that rotation is going to look like because they're picking up Thibodeau's 5th-year option.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird to me.
Yeah, I thought that was really weird. Darius Alexander, plug and play, starting 3 tech next to Dexter Lawrence, cut and dry. But then adding Cam Skadaboo, Marcus Bowe in day 3, 2 really good picks. Bowe could start for them at guard or center. And Skadaboo is such a really good compliment to Tyrone Tracy in the backfield, and he's going to be like a New York legend by the time this is done.
All right. I like the Jets draft as well. Armin Membu in the first round, Mason Taylor, Azariah Thomas. Like, their first 3 picks were both position of need, but also, you know, arguably the best players available at the time that they were picking. So I thought that they knocked it out of the park.
I gave him a B plus. I thought it was a good
That's also
draft.
what I gave them. Yep.
I wish they would have addressed receiver a little bit more because
Yeah, like it's Garrett Wilson and who else is there right now? Like
Malachi
Corley. Yeah.
um Arian Smith now, who
Yeah.
Arian Smith's biggest problem is they're gonna have to lock him in the practice field with a jugs machine from day one. He
A receiver who can't catch. Good job.
He's really fast, like incredibly fast. He just can't catch. like it's chronic. It's debilitating at this point. But I love what they did with Membu. I love that they get with I love they got Azaria Thomas. I love Mason Taylor picks. They just feel very on brand for this team. And I also love Malachi Moore on day 3. That is an Aaron Glenn type of player.
All right, Philadelphia Eagles from me. I'm not going to be one of those people who like tweets out, "Oh, how he does it again," when getting Jihad Campbell. Like the thing with the Eagles, like they see a really good player from an SEC school, they take that guy. Like it's really not that difficult. They drafted well. I gave him like a B minus. Like it wasn't, but it didn't like blow me away.
I genuinely thought Jihad Campbell was going to go a lot earlier. So I was one of those. Of course, he goes to the Eagles. They actually had a trade in place with the Chargers to trade up for Jihad Campbell. So I think that's gonna be an awesome pick. I think he and Zach Bond work so well off each other, but I only gave him a B because like everything else is just kind of fine about it. I think the 2 biggest pieces for this class are Miles Hinton and Cam Williams on day 3, who are your typical Jeff Stoutland enrollees who end up becoming like Pro Bowl guards.
Sure. All right. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know why they took Emeka Egbuka in round 1. I love Emeka Egbuka. I think he's going to be really good, but that just felt like a weird thing to do. But after that, man, Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish, they get a nice pair of young cornerbacks, and then they also get David Walker and Elijah Roberts. So I gave him a B plus because they got positions of need later on in the draft and then got the shiny toy in round 1. So they kind of had their cake and ate it too.
So let me sell you on Egbuka. I love that pick. Chris Godwin is coming off of an obliterated ankle and is also 29 years old. Mike Evans is 31 years old. This is a pick for the present and the future of the team. Egbuka, while Godwin is out, he's going to play number 2, and he's a much better third receiver than Jalen McMillan. So I thought that made a lot of sense. I know they just paid Godwin, but it makes sense to kind of invest in your future because what worked for this Bucs team with Baker Mayfield at quarterback is having a trio of really damn good receivers.
Yeah.
But on day 2 and 3, they absolutely cleaned up. Like you said, I think Jacob Parrish and Benjamin Morrison, if Morrison is healthy, that group of Ben Morrison, Zion McCollum, Jacob Parrish, Tyke Smith, and Antoine Winfield Jr., fun as hell.
Yeah.
Fun as hell secondary. David Walker on day 3 rules. Elijah Roberts is really fun. And then Tez Johnson to round it out. I think they just added a bunch of really solid players. I ended up giving them an A minus.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And then let's see. The Tennessee Titans are somehow like Cam Ward is the least talked about first overall pick ever. I think that's fair to say. But outside of Cam,
ever.
It's certainly up there, man.
I think it's just recently.
I'd have to go back, like at least in like my lifetime, to see.
Trayvon Walker was just the first overall pick.
That's true. That it was still talked about though, because everybody's like, "Why did you not take Aiden Hutchinson?" So it was talked about, but it was like ridiculed.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, who was the number 1 overall pick in 2015?
Is that the Jameis Mariota draft?
That was the Jameis Mariota draft.
So
was it 2014?
2014 and 2013. I think it was like Eric Fisher and then Blake Bortles one year.
Yeah, 2013 was Eric Fisher.
Yeah.
Or 2013 was Eric Fisher. 2014 was Clowney.
Okay.
Then 15 was Jameis and Mariota. 16 was Jared Goff, Carson Wentz.
Okay. So I don't know. I think that you can make the argument.
I go back to 2013.
Okay. Then the last like decade then.
Yeah.
Outside, even then though, like getting KJ Winston, getting Elick Ayamanor, both of those really good picks. Who they take? Chimere DK, the receiver out of Florida that they also got. Did I say his first name right? Probably not.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I don't know. Am I missing anybody else in the Titans draft class?
Olu round 2 gonna be really good for them.
Okay.
I think he's going to be a really good player. Cam Ward, quarterback. I mean, he was going to be the first overall pick, regardless. I think Kevin Winston was a fine pick for them. I wasn't as big of a fan as Kevin Winston as other people. I think I tweeted out, he plays football like Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, I saw you say that.
Because like he's a hammer against the run, but when he misses, he's going to go through a table and look like he died. So I have questions, especially when Xavier Watts was on the table or on the board. But I think adding Io Manor, Chim DK, Gunnar Helm, and Jackson Slater really helps insulate the core of that offense. And then you go out and sign Xavier Restrepo as a UDFA, which feels like helping your young quarterback who went to the same school as him. So I gave it a B+. I'm curious to see how it all pans out.
All right. And then I believe, we didn't talk about the Washington Commanders. My bad. So they take Josh Connerly. Good pick. They take Trey Amos, almost cornerback. Good pick. I thought that they had a pretty solid overall first couple days. Gave them overall a B.
I gave him a B+ because I also think I'm factoring in that one of their picks is Laramie Tunzel.
Yeah.
Who, they want to help their young quarterback by establishing the offensive line. I think Connerly can play guard or tackle, but he's going to play right tackle for them.
Yeah.
I love the Trey Amos pick. I thought he was going to go much higher. He's a perfect fit for Dan Quinn's defense. And then I think Jalen Lane adds speed. But K. Madrano, day 3 rules. He's a really good pass defender.
All right. And that is the 2025 draft final grades from us. Buddy, what do you got coming on SB Nation after a very busy weekend?
So I just recorded a TikTok about 3 of my favorite draft classes, and then you can find my preliminary 2026 NFL draft big board. We have 5 quarterbacks on there, but they are not in the range. They are not in the order that you think, and Arch Manning is not on there. So make sure to go look at that. But let's see what I'm doing, see where I'm going. NFL draft's over, so we're going to do some fun offseason stuff.
Love it. Love it. Check out everything going on from me, both on the YouTube channel and the podcast front, but also Sporting News, USA Today, running behind the steel curtain over at SB Nation as well for all your Steelers coverage. So lock into everything that we are doing. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, do all that YouTube stuff. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review. Buddy, always appreciate you hopping on here. Talk to y'all soon, okay?
See ya.
See you, everybody.